Just after 6 p.m. on January 7th, a fire ignited in Eaton Canyon, California. In a matter of hours, powered by sustained 60-mile-an-hour winds with gusts as high as 100 miles an hour, the fire spread through Pasadena and into the neighboring area of Altadena. In the days that followed, the Eaton fire grew to become one of the worst fires in California history, killing 17 people, burning more than 14,000 acres, destroying more than 9,400 structures, and damaging more than 1,000 others. In the city of Pasadena, approximately 150 structures were destroyed, but because of the efforts of the police and fire departments, no one in Pasadena lost their lives. My guests today are Captain Trey Sorensen from the Pasadena Fire Department and Sergeant Bobby Crease from the Pasadena Police Department. Trey was the evacuation group supervisor, and Bobby was the command post supervisor during the first 14 hours of the fire. Although the Eaton fire burned for almost 2 weeks, for this debrief, we will be looking at the first 12 hours of the fire and how the police and fire departments struggled to save lives as an uncontrollable fire tore through their city.
My name is John Becker. For the past 4 decades, I've dedicated my life to protecting tactical operators. During this time, I've worked with many of the world's top law enforcement and military units. As a result, I've had the privilege of working with the amazing leaders who take teams into the world's most dangerous situations. The goal of this podcast is to share their stories in hopes of making us all better leaders, better thinkers, and better people. Welcome to the Debrief.
Guys, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
So, Bobby, why don't we start with you? I think it's probably best to just walk through the timeline of the fire. And you know, at the end, we can kind of walk through lessons learned. But maybe just, well, actually, before we do that, let's just do a little background. Well, give me your background. Give me a little bit about the city of Pasadena Police Department.
Okay. About 30 years on the job now. I think that anniversary is in September. So 25 of those with Pasadena. I've worked just about every section in the department, from backgrounds to gangs, detectives, patrol, and probably the most passionate part of it is being on the SWAT team since 2002. So city of Pasadena is about 24 square miles, about 140,000 nighttime population. That probably swells another 100,000 during the day.
How many cops does the department have?
We have 235 sworn, I believe.
Okay.
Probably another 60 to 80 non-sworn.
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know Pasadena, like you hear 140,000, 150,000 people, doesn't seem like a big city, but Pasadena is kind of a unique city because at that size in California, it's not a particularly big city, but because of the Rose Bowl and the Rose Parade, Pasadena has kind of an outsized, you know, national or even international reputation and brand and all of that.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, we see people from all over the world that come here just to see the Rose Bowl all the way from January to December, whether it's to watch a football game or simply just to come visit it because they've seen it on TV. So it's all year round. It really is.
Yeah. Okay. So Trey, talk to me a little bit about your career in the fire department.
I've been on 23 years. I started in San Marino Fire Department. I lateraled to Pasadena 20 years ago as a firefighter paramedic. Been a captain for 15 years. And I've been on the SWAT team for 8 years as a tactical medic with the police department. I've been our arson investigator with the fire department. Unique spot, paid by the fire department. Work out of our robbery homicide unit with the police department. So I very rarely work on an engine anymore, maybe once a year when somebody needs help with coverage. But primarily role is working out of the police department, arson guy.
So guys, I think everybody kind of has a concept of what a wildfire looks like. And I know that I did, living in California my whole life. And I think that this fire really kind of radically redefined what I thought a fire looked like. Why don't we start with the timeline? Like you're both working when this happens. I know you're working. You're a field supervisor sergeant at this
Correct.
point, right?
Yep.
Trey,
Mid-shift.
what are you doing when the evening starts?
I was actually in court all day. Got done with court, and then I was kind of just roving around. We had trees into houses. We had um, person trapped under a tree, and I was just kind of an adjunct to the fire department. I've got basically a UC, call it the plumber truck, so it's got light package sirens. I was just kind of bouncing around trying to get ahead of the engines on incidents.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, like we know it's a red flag event,
Yes.
right? We know there's going to be high winds, which in California means there's a potential for fire.
Yep.
Man-made or otherwise. So you guys are already kind of on a heightened state of alert when this whole thing starts.
Yes. Yeah. We had already been put on kind of a quasi tactical alert. Everybody's in uniform, including all of our detectives and everything, in preparation for this wind event. What helped was, we say helped kind of cautiously, but in 2011, we had a very similar event, no fire, obviously, and we had thousands of trees that went down, blocked major intersections. It probably took a month to clear, and that was helpful in preparation for this event. So we kind of knew what to expect, where to have pieces in place, things of that nature. So we were prepared for a wind event that evening.
Yeah, but obviously there's no way to prepare for what's about to happen.
Exactly.
Okay, so what is the first moment that you become aware of the fire?
So funny, I'm listening to a little bit of the radio traffic on the way in, and I think the first fire call that came out was down on Queensberry, and this was before the actual initial call, or right after. Some of the timeline definitely does bleed together as you're going through the night, but the unit gets to Queensberry and there's no fire there. And so, like, I was talking to Trey about it a little bit, and we think what happened, because this happened throughout the night, is they may have seen the fire on the hillside and thought that it was closer than it was. And I guess that's a very real thing. People see the fire outside the window, and they were like, "Holy crap! Here comes a fire!" And so they call 911, thinking that their house is about to catch on fire. Fire wasn't even close to there. It was obviously still up in the canyon at that moment. But a few minutes later, the calls, I think our first actual call in that area, and I was at the station still, getting ready to go out, comes in, and initially, you're kind of feeling it out a little bit, and see what type of fire it is. Is it real? Is it just a little spot fire, bush caught on fire, or is this like a legit
so
legit
is it a homeless
thing?
fire?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Because all that stuff comes into play. You start rattling, past experiences through your head, and then as the minutes start to move on, and people are getting on the radio saying they can kind of see flyer and stuff up on the hillside, it's like, okay, maybe we should step up our response to this thing. I get into the car with my partner, my corporal, Barry Glockson, and we start heading. We get on the freeway, and lo and behold, Trey's right with us. He's right behind us, and we get off the freeway at Altadena Drive. And actually, I think we got off an exit before, went up to Orange Grove, and kind of zigzagged up because of traffic. But as we make that turn up Altadena Drive, I actually look at Barry and I was like, "This is the real one, man. This is going to happen. We need to start getting our minds right, basically, for how we're going to help mitigate the problem." So Trey was right there. He actually got up ahead of us a little bit. We get up to Altadena Drive and New York. You're already starting to get some smoke. The winds are kicking. We actually have some units that are coming up by us, and without even getting on the radio, we're actually talking to them out the window. Basically, hey, just let's start evacs up north of New York Drive, which is Altadena. That's the area we were in. We do have portions of Eaton Canyon that belong to the city, and our range is actually just adjacent to the canyon. So we definitely have some responsibility up there. But at that point, it was borders didn't matter. It was let's start saving lives and getting people evacuated. You could see that it was coming, and it was coming really, really fast. So We do that for a few minutes. Trey puts out where our command post is at with the fire department. So Barry and I head over to the command post just to start coordinating assets and getting folks there so we could now start to do a systematic evacuation. Probably within the first, I think we were there. I timed it on the thing. I think we were there for about 20 minutes. But as we got out of the car, and Trey looks at me, and he goes, "The sustained, I think at 57 is." He had his wind meter out, and it was blowing. And we were there for a few minutes, and we had this hellacious gust, at least 80 miles an hour, come down through the canyon, and that was our first burst of heat and ambers and a plethora of smoke that just came through. And I think Trey actually said it on the radio at one point, but I looked at Barry, I'm like, not sure this is the best spot for a command post, but hey, the fire guys know what they're doing. We'll trust them. And we were there for a few more minutes, and one of the battalion chiefs is like, "All right, guys, we're moving." We're like, thank goodness, because this is not a great spot to be in.
Also, and just to kind of set the stage, Eaton Canyon is just that, right? It's a canyon with kind of a river wash that comes out of it. You've got your range on one side of it, but it's kind of like houses on both sides of the canyon.
Yes.
Down at the bottom,
yeah.
right?
And a very popular canyon. There's several hiking trails that goes up. There's a beautiful waterfall after you get up about 2 or 3 miles into the canyon. So, lots of people like to go there and spend time. So we're very used to going up there and familiar with the terrain.
And Eaton Canyon then backs up, if you picture the mountains in the background, it kind of backs up against like Righteous Mountain, right?
Yes.
Like Righteous,
yes.
We call them the foothills, but
right.
like Righteous Mountains and kind of national forest land eventually. And but as you come south down the canyon, you're moving into a really populous neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Altadena, all residential through there, thousands and thousands of homes. And then as you go east of the canyon.
When you say Altadena, you mean Altadena Drive.
Altadena,
not the city of Altadena.
Both, because that is both, because that actually turns into the city of Altadena now that we're up north of Washington, just south of New York Drive is where that border is, and so all of that area is actually the city of Altadena now. As we go east, now we get into Pasadena City proper with our range, and then a little farther east into Hastings Ranch. So, which is where we lost the bulk of our homes in the city of Pasadena.
And just also to set the stage, like Altadena is a city, but it's not policed or fired by Pasadena. It's police services provided by LA County Sheriff, and LA County Fire provides fire service.
Yes.
Okay. So, and that border, if I remember correctly from looking at the map, the border is not like, oh, hey, here's Altadena, here's Pasadena. It's this kind of laced together border where, when you're driving through there, you don't know whether you're in the city of Pasadena or the city of Altadena.
Yep. Yeah. Even the canyon, because we extend several hundred yards into the canyon itself with the border. And then when I talk to just years of experience and working there, you talk to different people and you're like, why is that? Why is the border like that? And one answer, it's water rights. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Oh, very interesting.
Yep.
Okay. So Trey,
Sir.
You're driving on the freeway. You catch Bobby.
Correct. I was right behind them. I got off at Altadena. I looked up the hillside. Being the arson guy, I want details, right? And I just start taking pictures with my phone so I can look back at them. And I realized it's up in the canyon, which is kind of bizarre, right? You got 50, 60 mile an hour winds. It's an odd spot for it to be, but I knew it was an ugly spot. This is the one we talk about, like in the fire department. Like, if it gets up here, it's ugly. It's going to be ugly. And as I'm watching it, as I'm driving up Altadena, I see it pushing south. So the fire is pushing downhill, southbound into the canyon, which is not how it's supposed to go. It's supposed to run uphill with topography, right? So
yeah, in this case, if it runs uphill, it's going back into the mountains,
right,
not down into the homes.
Correct, and that's what normally happens on these. We get quite a few fires in there. There's transients down there, but this was not in the normal transient wash area. It was up in the hill, and the fact that it starts pushing down was kind of had my attention. I got to New York Drive where the battalion chiefs kind of set up. I was watching it, and Bobby and Barry set up. They're getting their whiteboard out, and like he said, I'm like, this is a bad spot. He's like, well, they're here. I'm like, doesn't mean they're making the right decision. Right?
Doesn't mean they're right.
And so I basically told Bobby, I said, if this thing hits the bottom of this canyon, hits the bottom of the wash, it's going to push south, and then it will naturally go up topography. So it starts pushing south to the bottom of the canyon, and I'm like, this is not good. It's going to take Altadena Drive, and I said it's going to take the range. I could see the patrol cars up at the range. I just told Bobby, get those guys out of there, because you're going to do things to protect your own, right? Like, this is their baby. This is our range. Like, they're going to go above and beyond, but they have no chance. This thing is wind-driven. I took weather when I got there. We're at like 57 to 60 miles an hour southbound over the bridge. And I just told Barry and Bobby, I said, if you get smoke in your face, get out. Like, don't wait for these guys. Get out to another spot.
Because the smoke in the face is an indication that the
Where
wind
it's
is blowing
coming.
the fire towards
Right.
you. Yeah.
So then I could hear the traffic, and I'm on the PD frequency. I'm listening to them. I can't even get through on the fire attack frequency. And I walked up to the battalion chief, the Pasadena battalion chief, LA County battalion chief, Cal Fire are all kind of met up on the bridge. I walked up, recognized my buddy is the IC. He's the guy you want. He's the brush guy. He knows his shit. He's calm under pressure. And I just walked up, knocked on the window, and he looks at me, and I could see he has his maps out. I'm like, evac group? He's like, yes. I'm like, shit, now I'm evac group, right? Never done evac group before, but I know I have comms with PD. I can talk cop. My primarily daily role is talk on cop frequency. I know the cops. I'm on the SWAT team. We have a great working relationship to communicate and get things done, right? So Bobby's like, where's it going? I said, it's going to go east. It's going to take the range. It's going to take Kinaloa, and it's going to go west, and it's going to take Altadena. So the weather pattern was very odd. We stayed there, like you said, probably about 20 minutes, and then I pushed to Kinaloa, started getting patrol guys up to evacuate Kinaloa. Kinaloa burned 30 years ago, was a devastating brush fire, Kinaloa fire. That's all I kept thinking is all those homes are going to burn. I made the turn to go up to Kinaloa, and there's a church that sits right at the bottom of the driveway by County Engine 6 or Station 66, and I don't know how they saved that station, but everything around it was on fire. The fire blew past it south, and the church, when I made the turn, it's got a real unique design. In the front of it has these two like angled walls with a vertical wall in the middle, and there used to be stained glass windows that were blown out, and fire had pushed through the back of the church and was pushing out the front where I couldn't get past. And I just thought, oh, I'm like, there's going to be bodies. We're going to lose houses up there, and people are going to be trapped. Turned around, defeated. Like, in my head, I was just, okay, what's next? What's next? Find work. And I told the cops, I said, if you've got embers over your head, let me know what street you're at. And so I'm getting intel back that we're at Hastings Ranch and we've got embers over our head. And I'm like, Hastings Ranch. All right, that's 3 miles to the east of us, right? And said, okay, that makes sense. And then we've got embers over our head at Oxford and Washington. Oxford and Washington, which is middle of the city.
Way west.
Yep. A mile and a half down from the urban interface. And I'm like, Burrito Express? There's a fire at Burrito Express? This doesn't make sense, right? So we just coordinated, take 4 more blocks west. If you have embers over your head, take 4 more blocks west. And as I'm driving over New York Drive, I look south, and about a mile south of New York Drive, I can see a palm tree on fire down by Washington. And I'm like, oh, this is ugly. So we've got 3 fronts. We've got that we care about. We've got an east front that's going to Hastings Ranch. We have a west front that's running the city. And then we have a south front that is pushing down into Pasadena at Washington Drive. So tactically, very difficult to stop this fire. And the cops were I could tell their frustration on the radio. They're like, I need an engine to such and such. The front yard's on fire. We're going to lose the house. And we're doing mandatory evacuations on the PA. Cops are knocking on doors. And in my head, I was processing, as we do, right? Like, what are the pros and cons? Like, what's the downside of this? And I'm like, we're doing mandatory evacuation. Like, how do I? And Bobby and I are making these decisions, right? Like, just tell them it's mandatory evacuation. And I know there's some legal side that if I evacuate somebody, like, I don't know, right? Like, so in my head, I got on the radio and I told everybody on the radio, I said, you're not getting a fire engine. Structures are going to burn. Our primarily role is to life and safety. That's all we're doing is we're saving lives. Get everybody out. That's what we're doing. And
how far into the fire? How long has the fire been burning when you make that radio call?
Probably 20 or 30 minutes.
30 minutes, yeah.
So like, you know, we have this concept of like, oh, a fire starts here and it spreads very slowly. And you're telling me in 30 minutes, we're 3 miles to the east, we're 1.5 miles to the south, and we're a couple of miles to the west, and there's fires popping up all over the place.
It's very, very surreal. And the chaos is almost unmanageable. And just, you know, I've been a sergeant since December 2008, I think. And I've worked numerous crime scenes, numerous critical incidents. Nothing prepares you for that. Like, it's just a different monster. And you do your best to try to listen to the expert. And I will say, like, I've countless times, the chief did a press conference about a week ago, and the media was there, and we were able to talk to some people. And I was like, you need to talk to Trey, because he was like in it, and he really saved, just unbelievably, made some calls out there that were, we wouldn't have been able to do on our own, because we just don't have the understanding of the fire, where it's going to go, where it's moving to. And Trey was able to give that to us so that we were able to focus our efforts on those areas first. Because it was hours before we were, what I want to say, caught up. Because I use that term loosely, because these guys are evacuating while buildings are on fire. Like, in best case scenario is we're evacuating before it gets there. It's like the fire is there, and we're doing evacuations while buildings are on fire. That really comes to a head. We're about an hour and a half into it. And Trey has some fantastic stories, but he gets into a situation where he's asking for a couple units because they're trying to get this heavier set person into a car, because is by himself on the sidewalk, basically trying to get out. And so he gets a couple more units there. And then he realizes that a few doors up from there is a convalescent home and I think we're probably at like an hour 20, maybe an hour 20 into it. And we don't understand the magnitude initially. Even Trey, like, I think his first assessment was, hey, we probably got like 50 or 60 people here. We need to move. And give me some more resources to help pull these folks out. And so we start to divert, a couple officers in that direction. We can't divert everybody because we got other buildings on fire and ambers flying in all directions. And as that scene starts to progress, Trey gets, I can't, and some of the conversation is on the radio and some of it's on the phone. So it's like, as we're talking, our radios, we started to lose radio communication just because of the heat and the smoke, and no towers, like our radio tower didn't burn. not that night anyway. And as we're trying to communicate on the radio, it just was not connecting. The signal was not connecting. We have a backup plan for that. We'll talk about that at the end, and some things we could have done a lot better preparing for that if that were to actually have had happened. But Trey's like, okay, it looks like we have over 200 people here, and it's and it just and the number keeps climbing. So we're all like, okay, we need to get more resources to Trey. Trey's asking for fire resources. We're trying to get him PD resources. And he was there in it. I'm listening to it on the radio, and you're like, it's one of those surreal scenes, just listening to him describe it. And I'm doing this because we've now moved our command post. We moved our command post 3 times, but
because you got overrun by the fire.
Yeah. It was great. Back to the bridge real quick. It's this final like 80 to 100 mile gust comes over, and one of the battalion chiefs is like, "Okay, guys, we're moving." And Barry and I are like, "It's about time." And we end up over at Farnsworth Park off of top of lake into Altadena, which we were only there for 2 hours, I think, before, and that's a good 2 to 3 miles probably from where we were. And 2 hours into that, we had to move again down to the Rose Bowl. But back to the convalescent home, it was just like that was the very first major like single scene during the fire that really got everybody's attention, and was we've none of these people can help themselves, and I literally mean like a convalescent home with over 200 patients, another 80 or so staff probably, and they're bedridden. Like almost all of them are bedridden. And
a lot of them are obese.
Yes.
And like it's.
Yep. And it's like and so going back later and watching the body cam footage of those rescues, and you're seeing like fire right outside the window from the cops' body camera while they're literally trying to like pull beds out of the front of this place, and then going back in, and I think that evacuation took about 50 minutes to get everybody out. I'll let Trey tell some of the more dynamic portions of it, but as you're just like going back and rewatching that, and you're like listening to it on the radio, doesn't give you the actual picture of watching what actually occurred, and like just the smoke, the amber, seeing the flames, and it was it was definitely surreal listening to it, let alone being there.
So before we get to the convalescent hospital in depth, let's talk about resources. So at 6 o'clock that night before this fire starts, how many cops are working in the city of Pasadena?
So we had graveyards had just started. They run 12 cops, 2 sergeants. We had 7 or 8 cops, myself and my corporal, watch commander, and then any bleed over from some sections that may have still been working, like our park safety folks, non-sworn. Our park safety is non-sworn. They were phenomenal. Didn't hesitate, got right in the mix. They have their own cars. They were up there doing evacuations, traffic control, getting people moving, the backup in traffic, like, so, I asked for everything basically. I think I asked for mutual aid about 20 minutes in, got on the radio, told my watch commander, who was coordinating at the station, I was like, hey, we need mutual aid here. And she was working on that. Callbacks, trying to get other people to come in back to work. And we had other resources that were doing that. It was funny story. A couple days later, one of the guys that came back into work, he's like, do you remember talking to me? And I was like, nope, don't even remember. I was like, what'd you say? And he's like, I asked you if you wanted me to come in. I was like, what'd I say? He was like, hell yeah. And so that happened.
But so this thing kicks off. There's maybe 30 police personnel.
That's a stretch, but yeah.
Like best case scenario, we got 30 cops.
Yep.
And from a fire standpoint, what would be typical for Pasadena on a night like that for fire personnel?
Our fire personnel we work 48-hour shifts, but we have 8 engines, 2 ladder trucks, 6 ambulances, 1 battalion chief. The ladder trucks, what they ended up doing is the units initially deployed up off of Eaton Canyon off to the west side, and they started setting up structure protection groups. Then they ended up making so then the mutual aid request comes in, and it's all predetermined which stations maintain coverage throughout San Gabriel. So we get Glendale, Arcadia, Sierra Madre, San Gabriel, anywhere in San Gabriel Valley is responding to this thing. We've got Monterey Park, Montebello responding, and we can't get an engine to help us. Basically, like, you're not getting an engine. They're already deployed, and they're hunkering down trying to stop this thing.
Okay, so when you're starting, what do you think at 6:12? I think 6:13 is the
I think
the
it was
official start
6:13.
time of the fire. So at 6:12, how many firemen are working in the city of Pasadena? You think
we've got 8? There's 50 every day. There's 50.
We got like right now we got 50 fire and we got 30 cops, and a fire that in an hour is going to go to an area that's 4 miles wide, 4.5 miles wide, and a mile and a half deep. Okay. All right. So, yeah, it seems a little unfair,
yes.
But I'm not going to do the math. Okay. So when you put out mutual aid on the police side, all of the surrounding areas are now going to send you cops.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but your problem, right? Like right away, your problem is evacuation, right?
Correct.
Like his problem, well, the fire department's problem is fire, but your problem is getting people out of the way of fire.
Correct.
So what do you initially do? Like, you get there, the fire's burning. Okay, start evacuating people. So now you're sending your officers into the fire zone and on the edge of the fire zone, telling them just like get people out of their houses.
Yes, it's very chaotic initially, but trying to bring some calm to the chaos is twofold, right? And you're kind of in it. One, don't get yourself elevated on the radio. Make sure they know that when you're sending them to places, it's calm, it's collected, even though it's not. You're trying to make some order out of all the chaos. But basically, when we get to our command post, we open up our computers. We have a mapping issue that we discovered that we're working on trying to get that fixed. But our CAD mapping system only goes a block outside of the city of Pasadena. So as we are now trying to evacuate portions of Pasadena, we're looking up at a map both directions, not just west into Altadena, but now north into Eaton Canyon, because that belongs to the county. But then a mile over, not even a mile really, we're back into the city of Pasadena. And
that's like the Hastings Ranch area and all that.
And so trying to get a map that we could see, we're looking at a laptop computer screen, and we have the same screen in the front and the back of our Tahoes for command post purposes. But at that point, we're looking at an area I can't see on the map. So Barry and I are literally on our phones now, and thankfully they worked pretty well most of the night. But we're literally on Google Maps now, and we're trying to grid as best as possible where we need to send these cops. And at some point, Barry's actually calling out street names, because we're seeing names that are of streets that we've never heard of, and we're calling them out because they're dead ends into the canyon. Like it's a cul-de-sac that ends in the canyon.
Yeah, so these are going to catch fire.
Imminent. Yeah. These places are imminent. So we're trying to focus on those first. I'm asking not just for mutual aid, but I'm also asking for the sheriff's department. I asked for CHP to come assist as well, because they can help with the flow of traffic, because that helps free our folks up to continue doing door-to-door evacuations. So it took, I think, an hour. I think I asked 20 minutes in. I think Glendale was the first city there for mutual aid, and that was about an hour 20 in, if I'm remembering correctly, hour 20, hour 30. So about an hour after the initial call for mutual aid is when I start to actually receive it, and we're already we already have zones for them to start evacuating. So we're just waiting for them to get there, because we're actually haven't even really started evacuating parts of Pasadena that needed to go. We're still focused in Altadena. So we actually started our mutual aid areas down actually in the city of Pasadena. We had a few cops that were down there because we were getting spot fires that were popping up. So they would go down, they'd see a spot fire or a structure fire, and they would evacuate that street basically by themselves.
Yeah, in this case, spot fire and structure fire are just 10 minutes apart, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The
Absolutely.
spot fire is going to become a structure fire as soon as it finds a structure.
Yeah, and it was what's surreal, and just watching hours and hours of body cam footage afterwards and an in-car video camera is watching the people try to put the fire out. Trey's got another story about one of the fire engines and like what he saw them doing that. Because they fell back on their training and what they were supposed to be doing, but basically it was for not, because this was just going to keep going, and but people with the water hoses basically trying to put out bushes.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that is kind of something that is hard to understand until you watch the body worn camera, and we'll show this, but like this is not like a house on fire. This is wrath of God.
Yes,
both sides of the street are on fire. The wind's blowing 60 miles to 100 miles an hour. Sparks are flying across the street. Palm fronds are being shot out on fire. I mean, I had a concept of what this was going to look like, and it was nowhere near as bad as it actually was when I watched the body-worn camera. So it's like, you think, oh, it's a fire, it's moving relatively slowly. And it's like, no, it's jumping a mile and lighting a house on fire that's now going to burn a neighborhood down.
Yeah.
And
that literally happened.
And you got 30 cops initially.
Yep.
And I mean, the relationship between Pasadena and Glendale, obviously, you guys are like brother agencies. Your SWAT teams train together. Like there's, you have good mutual aid relationships, but it still takes them a while to get there, fight the traffic, get to the location. As these guys are descending on you and you're starting to get these resources, I'm going to guess your problem goes from kind of local chaos of things being on fire, I don't have enough resources, to now, okay, there's 50 cops that are arriving. What do you want to do with them?
We never had enough. I will literally say, like, we never had enough. When you start to spread out and how fast this thing was moving, I'll say, just to jump ahead a little bit, about 10 hours in, we're now at the Rose Bowl. We got to the Rose Bowl at a little after 9 p.m. And we're now having to evacuate Linda Vista, which is 10 miles from the start of the fire, because the fire department was afraid it was going to jump the 210 freeway. So
in 3 hours. 2 hours and change.
No. This is a little deeper into it.
You said 9 p.m.
is when we got to the Rose Bowl.
Okay.
But we're probably about 2 or 3 in the morning. We're 10 miles away so 7 to 8 hours in, and we're 10 miles away, and we're now having to evacuate a portion of Pasadena up into the far western edge of Altadena, which for Altadena made a big difference because it did burn that far. It literally did burn that far. But they were afraid it was going to jump the 210 freeway, which would have put it now into the Linda Vista area in the mountainside. That would have brought it up over into Glendale. Thankfully, that did not happen. But that's how evacuations are supposed to work. You're supposed to be like, okay, guys, the fire's heading this way. We need you to go evac that neighborhood. because we're afraid the fire is going to jump and get there.
Yeah, because in 3 hours,
Yeah.
the fire may get to this neighborhood.
Right.
Not like, oh, that shit, it skipped that neighborhood. And
Right.
It's 2 neighborhoods over.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
it's just like the chaos of this. How are you allocating units as mutual aid resources are
Right.
showing up on the police side? What are you doing?
We're grouping them together. So, because kind of simultaneous to that, we're starting to get mutual aid resources in about an hour and 20 in. We're also getting some callbacks now as well. So by like between 7:30 and 9 o'clock, we actually do start to get a good group of cops there from our mutual aid partners and from our callbacks. And what we were trying to do is keep them grouped together. So our smaller agencies, like San Marino, South Pass, San Fernando, they're only sending, so a mutual aid agreement is 50% of your on-duty resources, basically, is how the agreement works. So as those resources are coming in, the smaller agencies, I'm partnering with the larger agencies. So I partner some of them with the Glendale guy. I put the sergeant from Glendale, who actually is a friend of mine. I just like, they told me who was coming, and I called him on the phone. He was fantastic. And so I gave him a bigger group to work with. So it was a sergeant, 4 cops from Glendale, and now I'm partnering other agencies, smaller agencies.
So if you
with
get 1 or 2 from an agency,
Yes.
you're sticking them with a
Yeah.
group of 6
Yes.
or 8 from another agency.
Yes, exactly.
So you're not having to manage 10 different
Right.
agencies. Just put them all under
Right.
that single.
And so I
task force.
basically had two mutual aid groups that were working. One led by Burbank, the other one led by Glendale, and now I'm using those to leapfrog west through our city to help evacuate Pasadena. And then we're getting groups from like Trey's unit, robbery homicide. We kept those guys together. So it was easier to manage by keeping those guys together to help leapfrog and work together. That way nobody gets stuck by themselves. And we have some recall. Hey, is so-and-so done here? Is so-and-so done there? Keeping track of that many cops. We ran a very minimalistic command post. Myself, my partner, and one acting commander, Keith Gomez, who was fantastic. Did his best to get us everything we asked for. Never said no. Took over the radio when we needed a break to grab a water or go to the bathroom. And we honestly, I think it would have been more convoluted had we had more people. Just given the chaos that we were trying to manage, we ran out of space to write on. I mean, you could always get out a notepad, but because one of us is always working the radio, the other one's working a map. Literally nonstop, at least for the first 4 or 5 hours. We had to remember literally where we were putting people. Dispatch was fantastic. They kept track of like as you read our CAD history for the first 12 hours is 35 pages. So yeah. So going through and then you would, the cops asked, they were all like, hey, are we giving you every address we knock at? Well, I've got six groups by 8 or 9 o'clock. So we got 6 different teams working different areas of the city. And I was like, there's no way. It was like, that would overwhelm us. It'd overwhelm the radio for one, and then it would overwhelm dispatch. So the only address we want to hear is the refusals. Cause we had numerous people that refused to leave. That
was huge later.
Yeah.
On the follow-up side. Like
yeah.
that intel, fact that the officers would say, I'm at so-and-so street, this address, we have 2 elderly people that are refusing.
Yep.
In my head, I'm like, whoever's got to clean this up on the backside, that's going to be great intel, right? Which ended up being me on the backside, cleaning it up. And
ironically, yeah.
So, dispatch 2 days later, I'm like, I don't know how you're going to pull this off. I don't know what it looks like was kind of my theme for this week event, right? For like 7 days. But I said, I don't know what it looks like, but I need you to go through your notes and get me every address on refusal to evacuate.
Yeah, because at this point, like the fire is burning so fast, you're not fighting the fire, right? Like there is no way to fight the fire. There's no no helicopters or airplanes are in the air because the wind is blowing so high. There's no point in putting a ladder truck someplace and like, oh, we're going to put this house out because it's just moving so fast that really all you guys are trying to do is just save people.
So like it's a very good point. And what the fire tactical side is, if you can stop it at a certain, we know it's going to take these 10 houses out on Riviera. And our objective was to stop it at Riviera so it didn't run it all the way into Hastings. And they held it. County Fire deployed and they held it at this end house on Riviera, which kept it from furthering into, there's washes all behind these houses that I had no idea until you see this house on fire and you're like, how the hell did this house catch on fire? I walk back there. I'm like, oh, there's a wash back here, right? So there's washes that run all down from the mountains for the rain, obviously.
Fire is running through the washes behind the fire line.
It's running behind the houses on both sides, right? So it's running south downhill, pushed by wind, and then topography is uphill, so the fire runs up the hills to the backyards of these homes. So all that's happening every half mile throughout the city. So that's how it's bleeding into all these residential areas. So it's very bizarre until you're watching it and it doesn't make sense. And then the next day you look at overhead and you're like, that's how that happened.
That's how, yeah. Yeah, but at the time, you don't have situational awareness of any of that. It just seems like the fire is just kind of jumping from place to place.
Right.
And in some cases, it is jumping from place to place.
Oh, yeah.
A palm frond is picking up in the air and flying a mile away and lighting something on fire.
I'm at the top of Hastings Ranch evacuating. There's probably 10 houses on fire. And I watched palm frond. It's kind of like this, like Control-Alt-Delete in my brain. And I watched a palm frond just travel. And it lands. And then I look back about a minute later and the house is on fire. I'm like, I know how that one started, right?
Yeah.
Like I got one solved, right?
Jesus.
So there was nothing you could do to stop it. Zero you could.
Yeah, and it's like, I like to think, like if the hillside's on fire, the fire department's going to show up, they're going to put out the fire. And it's like you think about like historical events, the Chicago fire or the London fire, like how could that ever happen? That would never happen today. Yeah, it would, actually. Yeah.
Yep. So this is categorized as a brush fire. Like the day after, I was talking to somebody and they're like, this isn't brush fire. This is a conflagration, right? Where it's going from structure to structure and there's no stopping it. It's these fires, right? It's a historical fire that it started out in the brush, but this is not your standard. Like you set up a brush fire and you have a Division A and Division Z, right? And then you fill it in between as it burns through Santa Clarita, right? Well, this isn't that. There's no Division A and Z. There's a structure protection group in Kinaloa, structure protection group in Altadena, structure protection group in North Altadena. Like that's how it was set up on the fire site. So classification as a brush fire is how it started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but it was only in the brush for 15, 20 minutes. And then it's running through.
It's burning its way through a neighborhood. Yeah. That's crazy. So Bobby, okay, like we're maybe an hour 20 in, and we're seeing now mutual aid resources starting to come. Your fire's still spreading. You're trying to evacuate how many homes do you think at this point?
Oh God, thousands. Yeah, we were probably upwards of 3,000 or 4,000 homes already.
And you're announcing in the neighborhoods, knocking on doors.
Yep, we left that discretionary to the because they asked, do we need to knock on every door? And I was like, that's got to be discretionary. If the houses or the brush is at the back of these houses, because the officers were seeing it, right? They were seeing it come up the canyon over the back of some of these homes, and you're all like, if you think they're in there, go knock on the door. If it is okay, the fire's not quite here yet, I can get away with just rolling up and down the street on a PA. Then do that. But it was definitely discretionary, and they made the right call.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen the body worn of guys, kicking down doors,
literally,
and pulling people out, and I mean, these are like, especially when you get into kind of Altadena and like the west side, like these are closely packed houses,
yes.
And they're smaller, older homes with older people in them.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And Altadena, I definitely would describe as an older neighborhood, older families, generational homes and families that have just been there for a really, really long time. And that's exactly what you saw evacuating from there. So finding shelters for them. I think we had a couple ideas got brought up, but ultimately is the only place that was big enough was the Pasadena Convention Center. So I think we had that established about an hour and a half in, because our folks in the field were getting asked, where do we go? And because that's something else you don't think of in the moment of that chaos happening, is these people, not all of them have family, and they don't have someone somewhere else to go to. All their family's at that house, literally. And is like, okay, if I leave, where do I go? And I don't have money to go rent a hotel or, a funny story, just working regular patrol 2 days ago, we ran into a lady who was like, I had to go past West Covina to get a hotel room because that's how fast they were filling up.
Which is 25 miles away from
Yeah. Yep. Because there was nothing available. And that was the people that could get a hotel room.
Yeah, and a lot of these people are not going to be able to afford a hotel.
Right.
So you now,
Right.
in addition to trying to constantly evacuate these people,
Yep.
you guys now have this additional burden of moving people. And
Right.
I think part of the reason that I wanted to only talk about the first 12 hours of the fire is in California, like, we do fire. It is a thing. It happens every year. So like Cal Fire and Cal OES and that, like, there is a big machine here that's good at this.
Yes.
But that big machine is going to take a while to start turning.
Yep.
And I mean, it's going to be a while until you have true Cal Fire, Cal OES, true ICS command system in place.
Yep.
with supporting resources. And until then, it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep.
So Trey, talk to me. We're an hour 20, hour 30 into this, and let's do the convalescent home.
All right. So it's Hastings. We get a pretty good. I'm confident that the evacuation's pretty solid in Hastings. I've clear there. Kind of another side note story is I end up on this. I've never worked this district. I've always worked Old Town as an ops guy. I've never worked on the east end of town, maybe 5 shifts my entire career. And I end up on a road. I've got houses on fire on both sides, and I come up over the top of this hill. I think it's called Carriage House. Never been on this road in my life, and I go into full whiteout. I can't see my hood on my truck. And I look at my iPad. I was just using it to map and figure out what we need to evac. And I look at the street and it curves. Oh shit. So this is how the arson guy died on Paradise Fire. This is how the fire marshal died on the campfire. Like, all these incidents, that you listen to, these single resources that die, right? Like how the hell does an arson guy die on a brush fire, right? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, right? And then maybe he was the evac group guy, right? And then so in my head, I'm like, oh fuck. And I went into this. I don't remember on the job ever panicking, right? Like, I always can help myself, to get your mind right. And I took a deep breath. I said, man, you're good. Like, let's think this out. And I put my truck in reverse. I knew I couldn't go down. I put my truck in reverse, and my camera pops up, and it's crystal clear. And I'm like, bizarre, but let's go with it. And I back all the way down the hill, get to a clear area, and I'm like, well, cops are going to kill themselves. Like, they're going above and beyond listening to the radio traffic. And I said, all right, nobody goes above this street. I had to put thresholds on them, right? So I said, no one goes above this street. And I base that just off of the smoke conditions, right? Because it's pushing down, but it's settling. Like, it's settling in these pockets where the wind's over the top. It didn't make sense till later looking at it in daylight.
Yeah, but like the wind's coming down the mountain and it's pushing the smoke down into the neighborhoods.
Right. And so the fire's blown through, but the houses are still smoldering, but they're creating a ton of smoke, right? So that heavy, dense smoke is pushing south, and I just kept moving. Okay, we're not going above this street. We're not going above this street. I copy that, and I would just relay that to the command post, and then I felt good. There was no lights on at the houses, which were telling me that the people were out. There was still power in this area, so there was no cars in the driveway. Like, and you're doing these check boxes, right? And like, okay, I think we're good here. When we evacuated down to Washington, and I looped around Altadena. My geographical senses were so off. Like I couldn't keep Hastings Ranch and Kenaloa and Altadena, Eaton Canyon. I was like, oh, if I go this way, I'll be at Hastings Ranch. I'm like, I'm already in Hastings Ranch. Like one of the guys said, I can only remember 2 things at a time.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the stress and like dealing with 2 radio traffics and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, let's settle down. Like, so I made kind of this loop around to Washington, and then I came northbound on Altadena from Washington, and like McDonald's is on fire, and Jewish church is on fire, the temple's on fire. I'm like, I got to get back in the mix up into Altadena. And as I'm driving, I see this lady in a wheelchair with a cat box on her lap. And I'm like, that's bizarre. Like on the sidewalk, and there's the fire's 10, 15 feet behind her, right? And it's pushing south. She's on the sidewalk, and I saw her out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, no.
I literally, when he's like saying stuff like this, and other guys say stuff too, but that scene in Black Hawk Down, and the one ranger references it, but he sees the donkey crossing the street and like shit that he remembers.
Yeah.
Like that's what I kept thinking about. I was like, that's one of those moments.
Yeah, and I stop. She's a bigger gal, and no. And I look in my mirror, and our training captain, great friend of mine, Captain Organ, I see him pull curb, and I'm like, oh. So you turn around, I go back. He's like, sorry, got a loader in my truck. I'm like, all right. And then so we wheel her over, and he's got his work truck's a 350, so it's a little bit higher. And I'm like, all right. So we start like, okay. And then that's when I put out, I need additional resources. Because I know I can get cops there, right? I'm getting no fire resources, but I know I can get a cop there. So I give the CP. I don't know where I am. This is a county area. And I'm like, I'm a block north of Washington on Altadena on the east curb. And Brad May, who's one of our heliport lieutenants, he's driving by. He gets out. He's like, you need something? I'm like, yes. So I go up to the gal. I say, ma'am, listen, we're going to get you close to the door. We're going to stand you up, and we're going to sit you in this truck, and we're going to get you out of here. She's like, honey, I'm paralyzed. All right.
Awesome.
I'm like, all right.
Just
right?
to add it. Just to add to it.
Yeah. So then
Just to add to
just
the
got
drama.
harder.
So then her assistant comes up, her caretaker, and she's like, I can go get the thing from the house. It's a little crane. And I'm like, and then I'm game planning this in my head, and I'm like, stop. This is that definition of paralysis by analysis, right? Overthinking it, and you're not going to win. Like, let's just fucking start trying, right? So I tell Brad, I'm like, we're just going to give her a heave ho. Josh got in the back of the truck, and he grabs her by the shoulders, and we got her like halfway into the ledge, and she's sitting on my leg, and I'm like, honey, I'm falling. I'm like, you're not falling. We're not going to let you fall. So I was okay. We'll flip her around, get her in the seat. I spin her, put a seatbelt on her, and Josh is like, now what? I'm like, don't know. Good luck, right? And,
take her somewhere other than
right.
here.
So then she says, just take me to sweetest lady ever, right? Sweetest thing ever. She says, just take me to Huntington. They'll know what to do with me. Huntington's our local trauma hospital. And I'm like, didn't hit, right? Just all these weird things I remember. And I just thought, that's bizarre. Like, okay, whatever. And like, as Josh takes off to take her to Huntington, I look south, and I see all these cars pulling in the parking lot. The cars are coming north towards the fire. Then they go east into this parking lot. What is this? I look up, and it says like assisted living facility on the sign. And this is interesting, because where this facility is, it backs up to Eaton Canyon, where it's spotted like an hour before down in the canyon from New York Drive. And I'm like, oh, this backs up to the canyon. I look, and there's fire coming over the top of the 3-story convalescent home, which didn't make sense. A lot of things aren't making sense. Like, I'm trying to process and make decisions, but as I'm walking down the driveway, I look in the first convalescent home. There's 3 separate structures. The first one, they're all down in the lobby. They have power, lights are on. Like, how many people do you have? We have 40. But we have a van coming. Okay. Get to the next building. They've got like 20 or 30 people down there. Okay. Get to the third building. That's the fire I can see is extremely close to it. And I look inside. There's no power. It's like 6 sprinkler heads broken, but they're pissing water out of them. They're not spraying like a normal sprinkler. I'm like, what is going on? And they're scared, terrified. People inside, they're elderly, like they're in wheelchairs. They've got a helper with them. There's people in hospital beds in the lobby. And I just go, oh shit. What do we do here? Right. And I go, nope, just make a decision. Right. Like, so I put checkpoints on myself. Like, if I see fire out of this back window, I'm pulling the trigger. If I see fire on this hillside coming over the top, I'm pulling the trigger. And I'm calling for fire resources. I'm letting command post know, like, I need everybody we have. Like, this is, I told Bobby on the phone, I thought it was on the radio. I reviewed the radio traffic. It's not there. And
yeah, I think that was a phone call.
And I told Bobby,
Yeah.
I said, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I've got to move 290 people somewhere. He says, how about McDonald's? I'm like, McDonald's won't work, because I saw McDonald's on fire. He says, 7-Eleven? I said, 7-Eleven, which is across the street. So a lot of face-to-face, and then the cops start showing up. 2 guys from the heliport show up who I know, and like, what do you need, Cap? I said, get ready. I said, when I tell you we're going to pull the trigger, we're pulling the trigger, and we're going to move all these people to 7-Eleven. Copy that. I said, get that building ready. He says, copy that. And then the other guy, he's like, I got this van over here, and it won't start, but there's people in it already. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, right? And then I'm inside the lobby of this place.
I think they actually pushed that van, didn't they?
They pushed the van.
Literally pushed it. Yeah.
The van was like backed up to the hillside that's on fire, and I turn around and there's like 10 cops pushing this van into a clean area, and all of these things are happening, and you're like, is this
This is like a bad fever
is this
dream.
real?
It's really
Right.
crazy. Yeah. Absolutely insane.
And another department showed up, and tried to give them a brief, and I said, hey, you got 294 people we got to evac. I need a strike team now. Give me 1 engine. We can keep this in check with 1 engine. And he says, we don't have anybody. He says, shelter in place. And my mind, right? So my mind went into I'm standing in the middle of this driveway. Shelter in place. I'm like, that we're past that, right? Like,
This is going to burn down.
Yeah.
Shelter in place means burn to death.
and all I think about is like the flood in North Carolina, and 300 people die in a con home, drowned,
Yeah.
and all the workers survive. I'm like, yeah, that ain't going to be me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to live with that very long, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I just said, and then it hit these trigger points, and I have embers over the top, and the sad part is all the legal shit's in my head, right? And I said, what if I wheel Grandma across the street and she gets plowed by a fire engine? There's no electricity on the lights, and there's engines zip-zapping around, and what if I plow Grandma with an engine? Like, that's going to be on my ass, and then we're going to come back tomorrow, and this building's going to be standing. This other chief told me to shelter in place, and he was right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm playing all these games in my head. It's standing in the middle of this parking lot, and I'm like, and I told myself, I walked in, and I said, if there's fire in the back window, and I walked in, and there's fire in the back window, and I'm like, we're moving, done. I don't have to make any more decisions, right? Like, I took a picture of that, and I took a picture of outside. So when I get called into court because Grandma gets run over, like, these are the reasons I pulled
Yeah.
the trigger, right? So,
I mean, it is so sad that even has to be a calculus.
Right.
That
You got to think about it.
It
Yep.
is,
It's
right?
just, it's like, just to digress for a second, like that is what we don't understand when we're suing our police and fire departments
Right.
is we're putting in his head in a situation like that. Oh man, I have to make sure that we don't do something that gets us sued.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which could have very easily led to him saying, "Okay, we'll shelter in place," and you know, not to foreshadow too much, but like an hour later, that convalescent home is an ashtray.
Correct.
Yes.
So as we're moving people out, the lady goes, "Hey, we have someone trapped in the elevator." I'm like, right? Like, and in my head, so we had about an hour before that, my brother-in-law, who's a battalion chief, he's working. He works for Pasadena, and I can't get through on our regular TAC on my radio that they've moved this to another TAC. So I'm calling him on the phone, and I'm like, earlier I said, I need an engine at such and such. And he's like, get me on Red 9. So we went to a direct TAC, which would be like Simplex on the fire side. So we have our task force, which is like a engine, truck, ambulance, functioning together with the battalion chiefs. And we're all on Red 9, which is direct TAC. And I get on Red 9. I'm like, is there a truck on Red 9? Truck 32 comes up. It's like, what do you got, Sorry? I got an elevator rescue in a con home. I've got fire impingement, and I need you here. He says, copy that. And the voice I hear is the guy you know that can get the job done, right? Like, thank God it's Rob, right? And I said, park on Altadena. Don't commit to the parking lot. The parking lot to this thing is a half mile long. These 3 buildings are all off of, I didn't want the truck in there getting stuck. Yeah. And so I turn around, and they're running down the driveway with their elevator tools. And they walk in. I'm like, okay, don't need to check that box off, right? Like, it was bizarre. Like, I felt like I had to. It's like when you're doing something in the office and you have this list of 3 things that you have to do that day, and you get 2 other things that you had to do that weren't on your list, so you just add them to the list so you can cross them off. Like, yeah. That was kind of my mentality. Like, at least I can check that off, right? And so we get everybody moved out, and they get the elevator door open. They blow it open with the jaws of life and pull the body out. It's like, you're good. What do you need? I'm like, I need a hose line. Like, that'd be great. He's like, sorry, brother. We're trucking an RA. Okay, so they get on the way. We've moved. I'm out in the middle of Altadena, and there's this herd of people. Like, the pictures, like, they bring back a lot of, like, shit, we did it, right? Yeah. Like, and we're putting 3 people in a hospital bed. Like, get comfy, right? You're going to 7-Eleven, and I don't know what we're doing next.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Pile him on a hospital bed and pushing him down Altadena Drive. Yeah,
and literally.
Yeah, it's skateboard races. Yeah.
And then Bobby gets on the radio. He's like, "Will buses work?" And I'm like, "Yep." Like, I don't know how you're getting them, but that's them to figure out, right? Which is a whole nother game. And so I come back to the con home, and I'm standing in the lobby of it, and one of our ambulance shows up. Our EMS chief, who's one of my best friends, he walked my kids down the aisle for my wedding. He shows up. What do you need? We need to do a secondary search. We had a head count from the facility. The facility did an amazing. We had a head count. They were 100% accounted for. Still, we don't trust that, right? Like, fire service, we have primaries that are done by the fire department, and then you send another crew to do a secondary search, new set of eyes. So I tell these guys, call him the sticker guy, Lucero, makes all of our stickers for the fire department, and then a kid I've never seen before, he's been on the job 2 weeks, and Silva, and then Ted. I said, we need secondaries on this building. Copy that. And the sticker guy's like, hey, keep an eye on this thing. If it gets through the window, let us know. And I'm like, clear mind, right? Like, I'm not thinking that. Like, yeah. My mind is like, it's somewhere. I'm thinking 50 different things. And so I end up in this little, like, lobby area, and I have eyes on the fire hitting the building. In about 10 minutes, it breaches the second floor window on the north side. So I pull them out, and we're on Red 9. We're on a direct TAC, and I relayed to command post, hey, we got 100% evacuated. We're doing secondaries. They're like, copy that. I'm like, phew, good, right? Like we all kind of like, it was intense for that whole operation. And
Yeah, and I mean, we'll show the video of this, but like as you guys are evacuating, like the building is starting to burn. Like this is not like, oh, they evacuated and 45 minutes later the fire got there. This is the building is on fire as the last people are being pulled out of the building.
correct.
Yeah.
And there's broken windows, there's smoke, like it's eerie. Like, and the fear on them is kind of the motivator, right? Like they know it's not okay. And it's our job to fix the problem, right? Let's fix the problem. How do we fix it? We just move them. Like I don't know what it looks like, but we're just going to
Just
move
move 295 people somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So then
Most of whom are bedridden and in wheelchairs and
walkers,
Yeah.
wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So then the fire breaches the second floor window. I pull them out. They have to exit. Fire's in between them and the east side of the building. So they have to exit the east side to where the fire is blowing up the hillside out of the canyon. And they're like, we're kind of stuck over here. We're going to let it die down a minute. It's okay. So then they come around the corner. They come back. Good. I'm like, good. This building's done. My brother-in-law shows up, like, what do you need? We're good. Like we're moving on. And we kind of all just, all right, we're good here. What's the next operation? And then Barry gets me on my earpiece. Our fire guys aren't monitoring PD. I'm on PD frequency. And Barry's, Trey, yep. Room 326. And it was kind of this, I'm not going to ask questions. He's got intel from somewhere, right? Which, and I don't need anything else. If he's telling me someone's in 326, someone's in 326. I just looked at the four of them. I said, room 326. I said, kick the fucking door and let's go. Grab the body and let's go. They're like, copy that? They take off up the stairwell. Now I'm in the parking lot, and it was like time stopped, right? And I'm watching this fire run the second floor. And I know that I just sent these guys to the third floor. Sticker guy, new guy, my best friend, my brother-in-law. And all these things are going through my head. And off of intel from Barry, right, he was my partner in homicide. I trust him with my life. I said, damn. I said, what if? Like, you start what ifing it before it's even done, right?
which in this case is not a constructive thing to do.
No.
Yeah.
And all I'm picturing is, I can picture my mother-in-law's living room. And all I'm thinking about is, I'm going to tell mother-in-law, father-in-law, that I killed their son. I sent their son on a death mission. Wife. Like, I'm going to have to come home and break the news to her that they're dead. And Ted's mom and dad. And this new kid I've never met. It was surreal for a minute. And I want updates, right? Like, I just sent him on a death mission. Tell me where you're at. Tell me what's happening. But then I know me. When I'm on these operations, the last thing I want to do is talk on the radio or someone asking me questions about what I'm doing. Like, do work. I know they're doing work, right? And it seemed like 10 minutes. It's probably 3 or 4 minutes. And then I'm just giving them updates on where the fire is. I'm like, it's on the second floor. It's halfway through the second floor, running west, getting pushed by the winds. And I just hear Ted. He's like, yep, coming down. All right. It's like, west stairwell, +1. And I'm like, oh, fuck. They got him. Right?
So despite the crew, the facility staff saying we got everybody and primary clearing being done, there's still one person who fortunately called somebody and saved their life.
So that person had called a family member. The family member called dispatch. Dispatch lets command post know. Barry lets me know. And they come down the stairwell with the wheelchair. This lady, her head's wrapped. They wrapped her in a blanket and a towel so she didn't get smoke inhalation. They're like, where are we going? I'm like, 7-Eleven. Like, and it was, I knew at that moment, like, this incident is going to jack me up, right?
Yeah. There's gonna be trauma from this.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like, okay, now what? right? And so then I tell them like, okay, now we're at 100%. We got the person out of 326, and they're getting moved to the command post. And still, even through the night, like they weren't accounted for yet. But like they're like, we just got a call from someone that 326 isn't accounted for. I'm like, 326 is out of the building. Like there was still confusion through the night.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the chaos is kind of unbelievable.
It took a while.
Well, now you've got 200 and, close to 300 people at 7-Eleven.
Well, so as the timeline is kind of funky. So he actually brings that up actually pretty early in the conversation. The fact that he's already established 7-Eleven. Okay, we're moving. It's actually not like super close. It's still a half a block south and catty corner. So and there's other buildings on fire on the way to 7-Eleven. So it's like they're trying to like wheel these people through the street and get them down there. They were throwing people in the beds of trucks, whatever they could do to get them down there. And so I asked them if buses would work, and that just kind of goes back to like our critical decision making. Like, how are we going to fix this problem? Buses. That's really the only way to get that many people moved. I actually start calling friends. I call the former Covina chief. And no answer because he's the Foothill Transit security chief now. And I was going to ask him for a bunch of buses. And then I was like, we just got to find buses. So we had switched normal operations to a different frequency for patrol, which we had one sergeant and probably one cop working the rest of the city. And I get the sergeant on the air, Milton White, and I say, Milton, I need you to go hijack me a couple buses and bring them up here. And hijack probably wasn't the right word, but
I would say it's an appropriate word.
So
yeah,
and he did, man. He found two Pasadena City Arts buses parked at Arson and Allen. Got out, said, "Hey, we need your help, and we need it right now." And he escorted him up to the 7-Eleven, and that's what they loaded everybody on with. So
we go from 249 people certainly dying, or 200 and with staff close to 300 people certainly dying, to nobody dies.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty yeoman police work right there, and pretty yeoman fire work.
It was and it just sat with me, right? Like I know Kinaloa is burned over. And I know that there's going to be dead bodies up there. I know Hastings is going to have dead bodies. Like in all these, and then I'm like, okay, but we did good here, right? And then I see a Palm Springs fire engine drive by. And I'm like, wow, they got here fast. And I look down and it's 4 a.m. Right? Like this thing kicked off at 6. It's 10 hours later. I'm like, oh, it's 4 a.m. Like, and I go to the fire station. I washed my face, couldn't see, take a piss, and it's like, they're like, hey, this thing's at Lake in Altadena, the gas station's on fire. Lake in Altadena.
Yeah,
how is this at Lake?
For those that don't know, that is like a long ways away and way down the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it kicked off the west end, right? So they're like, we need evacs. Like guys are just pushing west. So then hop on the freeway, drive around to Windsor, and I get off the freeway and I get to Ventura and Altadena, which is a top corner up by JPL residential area. And I get out of my truck and I take weather again, and I got 70 miles an hour west winds. Where I just came from, I've got 50 mile an hour east winds and south winds, right? So, and I'm looking at JPL, and then the mountain slope kind of dips down. I thought, oh shit! Like if this gets into the arroyo, like it did all these other canyons, it's going to get into the arroyo, and this is going to go to Dodger Stadium.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's going to come through. It's going to come through the Rose Bowl, which is now where all the resources are coming to.
Which is now the third place that you've been.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Go from these, like, I get out and I take weather, and I've got this probably 70 mile an hour wind west. And then as I'm standing there, like I'm trying to game plan what we have next. Like, what are we going to evac? And I'm looking at my map, and like Bobby was saying, like this is not our area. This is not our district. We don't know what street. I know where Altadena is, and it's a threshold for me, tactical wise on the evacuation. But now I've got pull up to a house and they're doing this mandatory evac, and it's one of my partners. I see his bald head. I'm like, oh, Juan's here. Like, shit, my guys are here. My robbery homicide guys are here. Like, and then it's finally like, okay, like we got this, And I get on, and then we went from this west wind to, I'll never forget this south, just pushing hard south wind. I just thought, how in the hell did that happen? Right. And I go to my truck, take wind. Now I got a 75 mile an hour south wind pushing to the 210 freeway. Down.
So it's not only blowing fast, it's swirling while it's doing it.
Yes. And I see the header. So the header of smoke is pushing like this. This column is pushing way over to the west, and it just turns and it blankets the city, blankets Altadena southbound. And I get on the radio with CP, and I go, I need every available unit and deputy up to this area. And I'd been there 15 minutes, and there was not a lot of resources in that area. So Commander Gomez gets on the radio. He says, you're getting nobody. You got our guys. I said, copy that. So start evacing. I've got all the slick tops, all the detectives running around doing evacs. They're knocking on doors, and
we'd actually recalled almost all of our personnel back to the Rose Bowl for a quick brief, and then we sent them all out to start that side of the city.
Yeah. So now we're 10 miles.
Yeah.
From the point of origin.
Yeah.
To the west and kind of northwest.
Yeah, and it was, and so because like we had been asked by San Marino and Arcadia for help, and we're all like, kind of stretched thin, guys, and so they were pulling from resources from the cities east of Monrovia, Azusa, to help them, because it's also skirting the northern edge to the east of all those cities.
Yeah, because it's burning through the top of Hastings Ranch and moving towards Arcadia.
Yes. Yeah. Thankfully, they a few structures burned over there, but not a lot. But Trey can explain that better. But that's all because of how the wind was acting, and it didn't push south into those cities. It actually stayed up, just skirting the edge of the mountain right there.
And I just remember going to the command post around 6 a.m. and my fire chief is there with the deputy chief. He's like, what do you think? Hastings is ugly. Kenaloa's gone. Probably going to have 100 people. He just looks at me and says, okay. He says, give me an update when you can. So daybreak, like there's houses that I knew I had to go to, right? People that wouldn't evac, and I looked, gone. Go up, gone. Go up here, gone. And I drive up Kenaloa, where the church was, and there's one burned house, 2 burned houses. And couldn't process how I drive all the way to the very top, these very high end homes,
gated community,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, nothing's burned. How did this happen, right? And the way the wind pushed it south, basically to the bottom of Kenaloa and around into Hastings, and then it went all the way around because of the topography of the hillside. It pushed it around to the top of Hastings. So it went all the way around Kenaloa, and it's like
they had a couple homes mixed in that burned up there, but there's several hundred, and it's when you drive up there, you're like, how I definitely don't understand it as a cop, and then listen to Trey like describe it as a firefighter, and you're all like, I have no idea how that didn't burn.
And just in touring the area with you guys, like there is just such a cruel randomness to it, where it's like 7 houses on a street are burned and 1 is totally fine.
Right.
And it's not like, oh, well, the one concrete house survived and all the wood houses burned. It's like even your range. I mean, your range is mostly destroyed, and there's like buildings where you're like, well, that would definitely burn, and it didn't.
Right.
It is, and I guess part of that is the wind and just the kind of,
it's the wind and it's the stuff around the house, right? So like this ornamental, they call them ornamental vegetation, right? So you have these small bushes, you have these things butted up to the house to make the house look good. That catches on fire, it's going to run up to your eaves, your house is gone. It's in your attic, right? Even if you have a stucco house, right? The houses that survive don't have that.
Interesting.
Right? So, and we do these brush clearances and we do all these things, and the city comes out and scapes the hillside so there's not overgrowth, but take care of your own stuff, right? Like, you're going to have, if you have your patio furniture up against the back of your house, your house probably going to burn down in a fire, right? Throw it in the pool. Like, like that's
crazy.
It's really is crazy.
So I mean, like I think we can use the convalescent hospital as kind of a microcosm of the night, right? But this is happening, small versions of that are happening all over, right? You guys are trying to evacuate people, they're refusing, or you're, do we have, certainly body worn camera of kicking in doors and pulling people out of their houses. When does it start to feel like you have even support? And like, I don't want to say you're starting to win, because it's going to be days till you start winning. But at least starts to feel like maybe you're not getting your ass kicked as bad.
So the fact that Trey brought up like that Linda Vista and Western Altadena evacuation, that was about 3 or 4 in the morning is when we started doing that. And I think maybe a couple hours before that, because you can't fathom the devastation until even at night, like when you're driving through it, it's not the same as when you go back later and you're like, oh my, it's like a different perspective. But a couple hours before that, I think we thought, okay, we've got at that point probably 95 to 120 cops, give or take, sending people back for breaks and et cetera. And they did a good job doing that on their own, because just like Trey said, like some of the guys were like, they couldn't see after going and evacuating a block. So they had to, guys were going into 7-Eleven, running into the bathroom, like wherever they could find to wash themselves off. But I think you felt like, and it's a false sense of security for sure. It's like, okay, I've got 100 or so cops working at any given moment. And, but then it's like, okay, assistant chief walks over and says, assistant fire chief walks over and says, hey guys, we think it might jump the freeway and now we need to evacuate Linda Vista. And then that dump happens again, right? It's like, and then it's just ramped back up, because like there'd be moments of, Rose Bowl gets cold at night, and we were literally shivering. And I remember our commander we finally gotten our big mobile command post down there. And the commander was like, why don't we go inside? It's like, cause it was getting hard to even like push the buttons. I can remember, but the crazy thing was there'd be an 85-mile-an-hour gust that come through, and it was hot. And it was like, well, where'd that air come from? And it was like, there's a big ass fire over there that's blowing all that hot air. So that kind of like reinvigorated the situation. You're all like, that's not going to be good if it jumps the freeway right there and gets into the arroyo, and that wind sustains going to the south, because it literally would have pushed all the way through South Pass. And people you can't. I mean, it's Altadena is gone. Like, there's no way to like even.
Yeah, literally an entire city is basically gone.
Yeah, it is literally basically gone, and you feel like you feel just horrible for those people. And but it could have been worse. It literally could have. It could have kept going. Like if the winds would not have started to subside that next morning, it literally could have been worse. So we start Linda Vista, and we have to draw the line somewhere, right? We can't, it's not infinite. So we draw a line in the sand as to where we're going to do evacuations to. And then that way, focus of effort, the cops have just good direction. Okay? And by that time, we had enough cops and supervisors there that I could actually assign however many cops to a supervisor, and then give them a specific area of the city to work. On top of that, as that's happening, we already start to get calls for looters, and so we're having to adjust to send people back over to evacuated areas because we're already getting looting calls, and that was probably 8 hours in.
So just when you get that warm fuzzy in your tummy
Right,
that
yeah.
Trey's rescuing people
Yes.
in a convalescent
Yep.
hospital,
Yep.
in come the assholes to steal
Yes.
everything they can
Yeah.
find.
And literally, they don't waste any time.
Lovely.
And you can look up the evacuation areas on a map on the computer, so they know, like, as they're driving through, they know what's been evacuated. And if the cops are all gone, that means that area has been evacuated. There's no cops left. And we were literally using every other resource we had to help with traffic control. CHP never showed up, so that initial night they were there the day after, but that initial night they didn't show up. So we were using parking enforcement, who are contracted employees with the city, and putting them at major intersections in Hastings Ranch to try to prevent cars from going up into that area. And we're getting calls from these guys, and they're all like, "There's cars going around us, and they don't look right." So now it's like we really don't have anyone to spare to go over there yet. You almost got to let it happen. It's like
Which
we're not.
maddening.
It is absolutely maddening. Yeah,
At this
really
time,
is.
we're still doing rescues.
Yeah,
it's
still,
daylight.
Yeah, you're still rescuing and evacuating people.
Yes.
It's 10 in the morning. We've got houses
and the
on fire.
cockroaches are in stealing the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I will say the next day, so I get relieved at like 8 o'clock. I come back about 6 hours later, and I get back down to the CP, and we've got, I think, 80 mutual aid cops there now. So our night side had been relieved, and we have about 80 mutual aid cops from literally not just our own mutual aid area. There's several mutual aid groups or areas within the county, and almost all of them had sent cops to us. So I think we had 80 mutual aid cops on top of what we were deploying as well.
I will never forget that. It's probably, I don't know what time it is, but I end up at the command post, and there's like a 4-piece of chicken nuggets from the night before.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yep.
"Want some chicken nuggets?" I'm like, "Sure." And I'm like,
Yes.
I ate the
Big win.
Yeah, right.
Whatever you
But
can
it
get
was
your
a
hands
win,
on.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're
And
the
I
best
walk
chicken
out.
nuggets I've ever had.
Truly. Like,
Yes.
I walk out and I see there's like some cops there, and I'm reading their patches, and I'm like, "Oh, Palos Verdes." I'm like, "That's cool." Like, they're here. And I look, and it's the chief. And I'm like,
nice.
"Oh shit." Like, and that's when it hits you, like, this is ugly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, but people recognized it, right? The chief is out doing traffic control. Like, that's cold-blooded. Like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
No one told him to come out here.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
mind you, 12 hours before this thing kicked off, the Palisades fire kicked off. So your mutual aid response is not your normal mutual aid response. We have Pasadena engines and a battalion chief at the Palisades fire because it broke out before our fire.
Yeah.
Right? Glendale, Burbank, all those resources are already there. And that campaign is not going to release resources because they're doing the same thing we're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the thing that also sets a stage for this whole
Yeah.
thing is the Palisades fire is already burning.
Yes.
Everybody sent mutual aid to the Palisades fire. Now you guys go off, and now everybody's having to have their mutual aids and split, and like I know just living east of you guys, I was seeing fire engines coming in from places I didn't even recognize the name of.
Right.
Coming in to fight fires.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, and I think that probably is a good point for us to transition to lessons learned, right? Like, I don't think you can prepare for a disaster this size.
No.
Right?
There's always things that you can improve on, but preparation, this is what once in a 100-year event, maybe.
And I was asked this before, and they said, well, what could you have done better to prepare for this? I said, there is none. You can't write this, right? Like, this is Mother Nature. Like, you're not going to control her or fix her. But what we did have is legitimate savages, badasses, making sound decisions under pressure that save lives.
Yeah.
Like Loaiza, one of our SWAT guys, is like, I've got the Bearcat because we can't move people in wheelchairs. And you're like, in my head, I'm like, hell yes. That's what I'm talking about. Independent action, right? Like, independent action has this bad tone to it, right? Like, people freelancing. That's not what the independent action is. It's a person making a sound decision based off his training, skills, and abilities. And that is exactly what happened on this. Without these people making these decisions, Milton White going and getting buses, like, no one ever taught you to go get a damn bus.
Yeah, you were
right?
never taught to hijack a bus in the police academy. Yeah.
And it's
exactly.
like, those are the things that help this, right? Like,
truly emphasizing critical decision making and allowing them the freedom to do it without asking.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, right? Is pushing authority down,
To,
right?
to literally the low. We're talking about all the way down to parking enforcement.
Yeah, like you are delegating a parking enforcement person. Like, yep, you're in charge of this intersection. Make it good. Godspeed.
I mean, they were in charge of trying to keep looters out of Hastings Ranch
without guns.
Without guns. Yes,
we're gonna write you 5 tickets.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when you look at the scope of this thing, like, even I know with the Palisades fire and to some degree this fire, like, even the water supply, right, is being overtasked by leaks and people turning their sprinklers on, and like it's you had all this conversation afterwards, like, oh, California has these water problems, they didn't have enough water, and it's like no water supply system in the world can account for 10,000 homes having all of their faucets turned on because their roof just crushed everything.
Right. Yep.
So it's I think looking at it from an infrastructure standpoint, you've got to think about, like, okay, you're not going to have the normal infrastructure, right? Even like radio communication. You talked earlier about, like, towers coming under threat.
Yep.
Right? Like, how do you even deal? Like, let's talk about radio for a minute.
So probably one of the and we realized this early on, and it was a conversation that I had with Barry pretty early on, and we've discussed this in the past because radios fail, towers fail. And for whatever reason, and going back and listening to the radio traffic, you can hear the spottiness. It's like it's cutting in and out, and whether that's just purely from the wind, the smoke, or the heat, or all of them combined, we were having trouble with our radio, our digital signature clicking through for us to be able to communicate back and forth. Sometimes you had to wait, like what seemed like forever, but probably 10 or 15 seconds for that to key in and the signal to actually capture so that you could actually talk on the radio. So we did talk about, okay, what's our backup if this happens? Our backup is we switch to simplex. Problem with simplex is it's driven simply by battery power from radio to radio. And where we were at initially, we weren't going to be able to communicate with dispatch on simplex. So there's a fix for that, right? We pre-position cars who have a more power than your portable radio throughout the city. And we've already identified areas. Our Pasadena City College is right in the middle. It's got a 4-story parking structure. We put a police car on top there, and that's our relay. That's one of our relays. And we have to do that in different points throughout the city. The problem is that, and I take full responsibility for it, is we never relayed that to our officers in the field. So, hey guys, if there's a radial failure, we're going to switch to simplex. We'll put some repeaters, some cars in place so that we can relay information. In a normal circumstance, we'd be able to use a helicopter as well, because the helicopter can get the signal from wherever they want, and they can transmit anywhere in the city on simplex.
Not in 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Not 100-mile-an-hour winds. Nope, no helicopter. So that was definitely one of those lessons learned where we could have come back and put that out so everybody had that information. Because had the radios completely failed, cops would have been still working, but we'd had no idea where they were, and accountability starts to become an issue at that point. And
and you may lose somebody.
yeah,
literally.
yeah, exactly. And because even like Trey, just something as simple as Trey letting cops know not to go above a certain point in the city is huge. Because
but if your radios don't work, they never hear it.
Right. They never hear it. So
it also strikes me that like the tactics that you've trained for,
right,
the things that you know how to do, right? If you're a firefighter fighting a structure fire, you know how to fight a structure fire, you know how to fight a brush fire, but those tactics are not going to work with this adversary, right? Like you're not going to go into brush fire mode because, you know, as you described, a conflagration, but you're also not going to try and fight all the structure fires because there's going to be 9,000 of them, literally.
Like a normal structure fire in the Verdugo system, you're going to get 3 to 4 fire engines, 2 ladder trucks, an ambulance, and a battalion chief. If it's confirmed fire, you get a second battalion. We're running, you have a engine that's in charge of 5 houses on fire, and all you're trying to do is keep it in check so it doesn't catch that 6th one on fire. That runs it to the rest of the city. That takes it to lake. That takes it, and those were the things that the fire guys really did great on. If you look at the fire where it pushed to, and I had no intel on the fire side, right? I'm hearing things, and then the next morning I go back and the engines are still there. They're holding it at Woodbury, right? Not letting it get into our area, and it's impressive. You get 2 engines keeping a whole block in check, so it doesn't get into Pasadena. So there's a lot of those stories, and just people pulling. It sounds cliche to do hero shit, but like you're not thinking about it, right? You're listening to cops on the radio. Hey, this whole house is on fire. We're going in. We hear someone screaming, and they go in. They're like, "We got him out," right? And the radio traffic. What back to the radio traffic? I think more important than that is the discipline. Like the radio discipline was phenomenal. That's why this was also successful, right? Like how many times on these critical incidents you're trying to get critical intel out and you're bonking because someone else is talking about some dumb shit that's 2 blocks away on, that doesn't apply. Like people didn't talk. And then when they did, like in the beginning, Glockson said, "No, we're not doing that." Right? "No, you're not doing that." And I thought, this is 30 minutes into this, right? And I'm like, oh, this is going to be okay. Because true leaders say no, right? Like, he's not a yes man. "Oh, yeah, we'll get to that later." No, we're not doing that. That is not a priority right now. And you hear that a couple times, and then it's like, people are like, "Okay, don't ask dumb shit."
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's clearly not what we're dealing with.
That actually makes a big difference.
Trey's rules of emergency management. Number 1, don't ask dumb shit on the radio.
Right? And I think that really helped the discipline. And guys did so much stuff that we'll never know about. Right?
Yeah.
Like, which is, it's great. Like, and
that's like it's just even watching the body worn and some of the vehicle camera stuff. Like the assisted living facility is kind of the obvious 300 people and very conspicuous and so like that becomes kind of the paradigm of what we're going to look at. But watching the body worn, like there's probably 500 examples of a cop kicking in a door and picking up Nana and throwing her in a car and sending her on her way that we may never know about simply because nobody's going to sit and watch all of the body worn and some of them might not even have their cameras on.
Yeah. I can tell you, like he brought up Brad May earlier. That guy was doing great work. He went to,
who had evacuated his family before this.
Yeah. Cause they live in Hastings. Went right back to work. Never got to his office where his body camera was at, so we don't have any of his footage. I was going through and I was looking, and I finally had to ask him, and he's like, "I didn't have it because I never went back to the office to grab it because he was doing stuff like just, hey, what don't we don't have masks and we don't have goggles, so what do you do?" Flew down to Home Depot. They gave him everything they had. And he started just like literally just like driving down the street, throwing goggles and masks at guys. "Hey, put these on, put these on, put these on." So little things like that. Monica Cuellar, another lieutenant, but didn't turn on her body camera because it was like not something watch commanders do. So, but she was out literally in the middle of it getting work done.
So she, at the con home, she comes up to me and she's like, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need you to keep eyes on the back of this building. When it catches fire, let me know." She's like, "Copy that." And she's out in it. Like, she's out in it, and she's giving me updates. And it's like, those are my triggers, right? And she's like, "Trey, you up?" I'm like, "Yep." She's like, "The back of the building's on fire." I'm like,
all right.
Copy that, right? Like, and
Yeah.
like, and it's, but she's calm. Like, everyone on the radio, like Corporal Miles, like all these things. Like, I forgot about all of this, right? And I'm reviewing the radio this week, and I'm at my desk, and I'm reliving everything, and I'm like, holy shit! Like, the calmness on the radio, right? Like, there's points where you're like, that guy needs help, right? And a lot of the time it was me, right? And it's like, it was really.
I will say we did have two of the more experienced teams working that night, patrol teams,
which helps.
So that definitely made a difference. From all the way up to all the way down to the bottom of the ladder. It's like you could see the experience. Guys weren't saying frivolous shit on the radio. A few questions were asked, and Barry shut them down right away. And just having the confidence to rely on Trey and Barry I don't have to second guess their opinions or their questions or their decisions. Like, it's like, if they said it, it's happening, and that's just the way it is. And we're moving on now to what's next and what needs to be handled next. So,
So I want to kind of rapid fire some of the lessons learned here in the time we have left. So, like, how do you harness the expertise of this? You've got all of these resources. How do you harness that expertise when you're trying to run this operation from a distance?
Well, trusting guys make decisions is definitely one. But that starts way before that, right? It's like, what are you talking about in your briefings? Are you giving guys the latitude to make decisions when they're in the field on just a normal call? I'm not overseeing them. I'm not micromanaging them, because that's how they gain the confidence to be able to make those decisions down the road when these type of incidents happen. So that a lot of that just comes from years of training and leadership, and just our own classes that we've done together and things like that. So
but it's also relationships, right? Like,
absolutely,
everything we debrief on this show comes back to these relationships, right? It comes to the mutual aid relationships, the relationships between the agencies, and the relationships in the agency, right? It's knowing, okay, I know Trey, I trust Trey, tell me what I'm doing, okay, good to go. And I think it's easy to overlook those things and not place enough emphasis on this kind of, in the end, it's just a group of people trying to do a common task, and they have to trust and work with each other.
Yes.
And that's a huge point, right? And 8 years ago when I went into Arson, my old chief, Breeder, said, "I don't care if you solve one arson. Fix the relationship between PD and fire." That was my mission, right? And that was in, 8 years ago. It's 2017. And that was my goal. And it just happened. I developed this relationship with robbery homicide, and Commander Gomez was a sergeant at the time. We become friends. He's one of my closest and dearest friends. And he trusts me, right? Like, he trusts me with an operation early in my career, and I've got 90 cops hit in 5 locations on an arson case. And he's like, okay, like, that's where it started, right? Like, he's like, and it's like, and then like the fire chiefs trust me with the PD guys. Like, I'm not micromanaged by them, right? Like, and there's a trust there also that I'm going to do my job. And Bobby and I go back when he was on the Marshals team. He called me at 3 a.m. Hey, we're doing a high risk hit. Can you come be the medic? Yeah, I'm in. I will never say no to helping somebody, right? Yeah. Like, and he trusts me. I trust him. I trust Barry. Like, and it goes back to room 326. Like, I had no intel other than Barry telling me it's room 326, right? And it's that trust. And that's why all these people, like, there's so much against us, right? And the teamwork is what did it. It's the cops playing with the firemen, and we have this relationship, and for those watching, right? If you're in the command decision mode, work on that, right? Like have a fire guy assigned. There's no reason that arson guy shouldn't be assigned to the police department. Put him in property, put him in something where you have that relationship, right? And we get to the command post at the Rose Bowl, and the guy that's running body recovery from Cal OES side, he's on the overhead team, says, how did no one die in Pasadena? I said, I don't know, but I'd like to think is our comms and our communication. They trusted me. I trusted me. He's like,
no one died in Pasadena because you guys did a fucking amazing job. Right? Let's just call it what it is. Like,
But
no
I'll
one
say
died in
if
Pasadena
that-
because Pasadena Police and Fire
Yeah.
evacuated everybody that was in front of the fire.
But
Full stop.
100% goes back to the relationship, though. If
Yeah,
that
no,
relationship
for
is
sure.
not there, it doesn't have the same
Well, and I
impact.
think it's easy for police departments and fire departments, as much as they tease each other, to get sideways with one another. And I think that in this case, the fact that you are a child of both worlds, right? You've been to SWAT school, but you're a firefighter, and you're the SWAT medic. I think that tie not only means you speak both languages, but also culturally you become a pivot point to pull the two agencies together.
correct. And I didn't realize that until this, right? You throw it into catastrophe, you throw into worst case scenario, and it worked, right? Like, but if we don't do that, and all of a sudden I'm the arson guy and I work out of the fire department, I show up and I'm trying to run shit or coordinate things, they're not going to have any buy-in from me, right? Like,
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
we eat lunch together,
Yeah.
right? We eat lunch every day. We go to our kids' birthday parties. I'm invited to more cop stuff than I am fireman stuff. Like, the firemen all call me a cop now, right? Like, so like that's where the badgering comes, you know, is
Yeah.
from the fire side.
Well, it should actually come from both sides if it's done
It does
correctly.
still.
Yeah. Being a child of both worlds.
Child, yeah.
Being a child of both worlds means you're taunted by both
Yeah,
worlds.
absolutely.
That's how it's supposed to be. Now, it's it's easy to look back at these things and go, well, nobody died. But what always strikes me in these situations is nobody died because there were people driving into a fire zone, right? Running into a friggin' convalescent hospital and carrying people out and rolling them out on their beds and all the stuff that you see in the body worn. And it's difficult. None of these people will ever know who you were. Right? There are thousands of people who got out of their houses because some cop that they didn't even know or will never get their name or anything else knocked on their door or kicked in their door or pulled them out. Or a firefighter stood on a hillside, while fire was spitting in his face, keeping the fire from getting to their house. And I think that part of the reason I wanted to sit down with you guys was it is moments like this when hopefully the public takes a second and realize it. Like, you're alive because somebody stood between you and the fire. Somebody, the footage of the motor cop driving through the, what looks like a steel foundry.
Literally.
Like it's,
yes.
So it's, none of these people will ever thank you, but on behalf of those people, thank you.
Yes.
So guys, I appreciate you sitting down with me and, again, yeoman's work.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, John.
Appreciate it.